We don't have a gang problem like California or Oakland or Chicago, but we have a gang problem.
Little guys carrying guns, and I look out my door, I see a guy putting a gun inside of his pants, like 13, 14 years old. This is too much.
Middle schoolers and some elementary school students involved in gangs, and residents are tired of the violence.
We have citizens that live here in some areas of this community that are scared to come out of their houses. Some of them sleep on their floor so they don't get shot at night.
What kind of life did you live before?
Oh man, I think I live a very dangerous lifestyle.
Zahid Ashanti, who is now a Hood-to-Hood program mentor, speaks openly about the gang issues to help the public understand what is happening in Louisville. He knows firsthand.
The largeness of Bloods and Crips, they dominate, our area of town. You can't really put a number on it because it's a Blood or a Crip being born every day.
The 33-year-old says he's been jailed for drug charges, but is trying to make a difference by turning his life around. He was in the Clarksdale Housing Project gang, also called CDP. That housing project has since been torn down. He says tearing down the projects has moved gang members to other areas.
You have different gangs staying next door to each other now. It could be a conflict. It cannot be a conflict based on how people handle themselves. And if it was positivity, a lot of times we don't get to see that. All we get to see is another one is gunned down.
And that's what happened to his brother. 23-year-old Jerry Taylor was shot to death on Derby Day in 2009. Happened on West Kentucky Street while Taylor was asleep in a parked car. His murder still remains unsolved. Ashanti was behind bars when his brother died, and that helped him realize he needed to change. You say you're inactive in your gang. What does that mean?
So an inactive state is a state of, I guess you could say, a state of achievement, but it also allows you not to be on call for mandatory violent acts or mandatory violent criminal acts.
This is Cecil in Greenwood, home of the Cecil in Greenwood gang known as CNG. Sources say it's one of the 5 most active gangs in Louisville. So do you feel pretty safe walking around here?
I feel okay.
Councilman David James is working with police trying to come up with a solution to Louisville's gang problem. He met us at Cecil in Greenwood and says there are not enough police patrols in this hot spot area.
I wouldn't say that one gang is more dangerous than another gang, but I would say that this particular gang is dangerous and that we are focusing efforts on their activities.
At the Public Safety Committee meeting, Police Chief Steve Conrad said there are 25 gangs in Louisville, but won't give specifics.
I've spoken with the new major for the district, the 2nd Division here, and what their plan is relationship to that gang is to target the most hardcore members.
What are your concerns here?
Well, I'm just concerned for the kids, my kids, and there's a lot of stuff going on. They come around corners shooting the guy down the street. He got a bullet in his side of his house.
This neighbor is making plans to move if the violence doesn't stop. The spike in crime has gotten the attention of the FBI. Jennifer Moore is the Assistant Special Agent in charge for the Louisville FBI.
In 2014, there were 56 homicides in Louisville. And in 2015, that number almost doubled to 86 homicides. So those are the trends we're seeing, an increase in violence, and that's what's greatly concerning us.
How many are gang-related, though?
We don't have that specific number to provide. I know that we are currently reviewing that type of information.
In Kentucky, the FBI has about 30 agents and task force officers assigned full-time just to investigate gang issues throughout the state. What can you say about these 25 gangs?
I can tell you that what we're doing right now is we're researching each of those. We're trying to develop a pattern for them and who they are. We don't like to identify gangs, as you know, by name because it gives them notoriety.
The Victory Park Crips, Market Street Crips, and YNO Gang, which stands for Young and Off That, have made headlines over the years. Gang names are released in court records when there are indictments. The FBI says gangs in Louisville are not limited to one area of town, but couldn't release details.
There is no one demographic to a gang. It can be Hispanic, it can be white, it can be African American. Here in Louisville, we see the broad spectrum of that.
Before, gangs marked territories by spray painting their names, signs, and symbols. But now the FBI says gangs are using social media as electronic graffiti walls. They post messages and pictures to mark their territory, recruit new members, and communicate to rivals. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter are the main sites used, and they're being monitored by the feds.
As parents, we say to our children, I love you. But for a gang member, one of the things they say to your child is that I will die for you, I've got your back. And to a child that's very impressionable at that time, one seems a lot more important.
How much is drug related in these gangs?
Drugs is always involved. I mean, because now it's like everybody has an addiction.
Ashanti wears an We All We Got t-shirt and is trying to help people get their lives back on track. They relate to him because he understands what they're going through. Their events give people a neutral zone to talk, no matter what gang they're in, what part of town they're from, or what color they wear.
People still feel like they defending and repping their hood. We're going to have a lot more challenge to be able to sit down and really try to impact the minds of the young people. Not get them a community center so they can play basketball, or community center so they can swim. We need community centers that's going to really deal with the development of our people's minds.
We are addressing this, and that we're going to move forward to make sure everyone does feel safe here.
Many who come to the U.S. from Mexico illegally endure dangerous conditions to provide their families with a better life, whereas others do so to expand criminal networks. While Shelbyville, Kentucky had primarily only attracted the former, mostly people seeking work in the tobacco and various horse-related industries, there have been recent reports of a deluge of the latter. Spikes in gang, drug, and criminal activity continue to occur, and ties to the Mexican mafia have in some cases been confirmed. Shelbyville City Council Shane Sutter said, "We don't have a SWAT team. We don't have a gang task force. We're just a small town." The population of Shelbyville is just over 14,000. The FBI has assisted with investigations, including more than one involving gang initiation killings. Local police say that both the Latin Kings and the MS-13 gangs are active in the area. The MS-13 gang is compared to the old Italian mafia, except for that their weapon of choice is the machete. Gang cells and cartel activities have also been found in Lexington and Louisville.
They've been pointing north for some time.
They're in here causing all kinds of problems.
That was Richmond in Franklin County.
This is probably the largest heroin bust that I'm aware of in the county.
And then there's Lexington. A heroin ring arrested at the Hyatt last year, a total of 198 heroin arrests in the city. Much of the source, a 5.5-hour straight shot from here. Court documents show that 1 out of 6 people arrested on first-degree trafficking and heroin cases in Lexington since January 1 claim the hometown of Detroit.
Heroin in this area tends to follow that I-75 corridor from, Detroit down.
And with the recent spike in Lexington violence, 6 murders and 20-plus shootings since June 11th.
Illegal drugs are largely fueling the violence on our streets.
So we headed up to the place known as the start of the heroin highway, where the violence, we're told, is born and grows and leaves.
If you're seeing an uptick in that in Lexington, Kentucky, just look to Detroit. Look at that history. It could be what's driving it.
Former FBI Special Agent Andy Arena and former Detroit police officer Lyle Dungy, both now with the Detroit Crime Commission, took us for a ride through the east end of Detroit.
This is where they do what they do.
An area referred to as the Red Zone, run by a gang called the 7 Mile Bloods, where getting out of the car to shoot video was out of the question.
You'll see the red spray paint.
That's them.
Yeah.
They ride with windows cracked, easier to hear screams and gunshots.
It's the reality.
Obvious signs that we need to leave. We stopped, though, in a safe zone to talk.
You saw it for yourself, those guys flashing gang signs at. So there were at least 2 situations where we drove by where there were known gang members, and they saw us, they saw your cameras, and they weren't happy.
And we went by, you said we went by the first time, not too much of a concern, but the second time was when they were wanting to know why we were there.
First time they're looking at you, who are you? The second time they're basically challenging you. They're throwing gang signs to alert you who they are. The third time, who knows? There wasn't going to be a third time. We're going to put you guys in that situation.
But most of the drive there was no one to see.
This whole block might be gone.
Just burned out homes or nothing.
I used to do a lot of raids in this area, and back then it didn't look as bad as it does now.
Dungy and Arena say work they've done to stop drug trafficking on these streets has pushed some of the trouble out.
The Detroit police learned a lot of things. The dopers learned a lot of things.
And south,
It was a cat and mouse game over a period of years.
They say the 7 Mile Bloods are a gang known to export mainly heroin down I-75.
If you got a bunch of people fighting over the same drug trade here, take the show on the road.
And the money's better for the Detroit natives down there than it is here.
Absolutely, absolutely. The profits that can be made down south are double, triple what can be made up here. And the gangs know that, and they go down there to try to exploit that.
Lexington officials say that exploitation has slowed as of late. With drug stings focusing on heroin, they're getting a handle on who's bringing it in and the potential of the violence the out-of-towners in turn carry with them.
When you get a spike like that, it's usually, there's some underlying current, something's causing it.
30,000 groups with 1.1 million members, and the problem is growing.
That's how the FBI describes our nation's gang problem, which is still plaguing the Louisville area. Tonight, WLKY's Steve Tellier investigates what's being done to stop it.
The FBI says 2 out of every 5 gang members are juveniles under the age of 18. Local officials are somewhat reluctant to discuss the specifics of Louisville's problem, but earlier tonight we introduced you to a mother who lost her teen to violence, and she has a message for other parents that the local gang problem is deadly serious. His mother says Antonio Tharp Jr. was an A student headed to the University of Kentucky in the fall of 2008. The 19-year-old already had his student ID when 3 days before freshman orientation he was gunned down. His mother says he had become part of a culture of crime, drugs, and guns.
He was into coming in high, or, smelling like liquor. The fascination of being with a handgun, to think, okay, I'm the boss, no one's gonna do nothing to me.
Terry Tharp says her son was part of a clique or a crew, but that he believed he was in a gang.
We are actively investigating the suspected gang members.
According to the latest FBI report, there are between 1,000 and 5,000 gang members in Jefferson County.
As far as our community having a serious gang problem, no.
Serious, no, according to LMPD, but still a problem. We first told you about the department's gang database 5 years ago. At that time, it contained information on more than 2,000 gang members. Police say that database still exists, although they won't release it, citing hundreds of active criminal investigations.
We do that purely for analytical purposes to track certain movements and groups that may be suspected of being involved in activity, of an illegal nature.
And kids are involved in that activity. The FBI estimates 2 out of every 5 gang members are under the age of 18, and many are seated in classrooms across the country. Is there a gang problem at JCPS?
No, there is not.
JCPS officials say they don't allow any gang activity on school property, part of an aggressive no-tolerance policy.
We train our principals on what to look for. They know what gang signs are, the gestures, clothing, graffiti.
All are banned from Jefferson County Public Schools, but school officials say they can only do so much.
If someone thinks that their child may be involved in gang activity, they need to put a stop to it immediately.
They're kids. They can't raise themselves. We have to be parents. We have to do this together.
The most important thing to prevent your child from being in a gang is for the parents at the house to look for the signs.
Things like a preference for a particular color or logo, use of hand signs, a nickname or street name, behavioral changes, drug and alcohol use, criminal activity, and an association with others doing the same things. Terry Tharp says parents are key to preventing even more teens from being pried away by gangs.
It's time we take over. We need to let our children know this is not what life is about. There's more to life than this.
Louisville police used to have a gang intelligence unit that was abolished after the merger, but police say that doesn't mean they have stopped fighting gangs. That responsibility is now shared between the narcotics unit and the patrol divisions. And police say Chief Robert White has recently poured even more resources and personnel into that narcotics unit. I'm Steve Tellier, WLKY News.
3 men are facing nearly 24 charges each after a pair of February shootings in Lexington. Devontae Cobb, Jake Jones and John Harris are facing charges including wanton endangerment and criminal mischief. Court documents say Cobb and Jones fired shots into several homes on Hedgewood Court at 2 different times on February 28. The first shooting was just after midnight. Police say a home was shot 19 times. Documents say it was in retaliation for a teen not joining the group's street gang. The second shooting happened around 6:30 that night. Witnesses say they saw a group of people running down the street shooting. Nobody was hurt either time. In the second shooting, multiple homes and vehicles were damaged. One bullet also hit a natural gas line, causing a gas leak which forced a building to be evacuated. Court documents show that during the course of the shootings, a total of 14 people were in danger of being shot. Harris' arrest citation says he used his grandfather's car to drive the accused shooters from the scene.
Last episode, we introduced you to the Ceasefire Project and its effort to reduce gun crime in Lexington. The Ceasefire Project also deals with cases involving gangs. That's right, you heard me, gangs. Typically, we think of gangs being in big cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, or... But the truth is, gangs are right here in Lexington. Gangs are located throughout Lexington and are not limited to one race.
Looked at our gangs here in the city of Lexington. A lot of times gangs will get a stigma attached to certain races. Certain gangs may be looked at as an African American gang or a predominantly Hispanic gang or an all-white gang, whatever it may be. But in our city, that's not necessarily the case.
A number of Lexington police officers have become experts in identifying gang graffiti, activities, and paraphernalia. Several have been trained to be able to testify in gang trials as experts.
With gang members. Some of them have been given to us by the gang members. Others we've taken as part of active investigations. As you see here, you've got a guy that writes Shorty back of the Raiders hat on school books or other things that they have around the house, part of that fanaticism that they buy into. This bandana to a gang member is the same thing as a flag is to a country.
Tape wrapped around one of the end to give it a better handle for gripping and also.
The Ceasefire Project has dealt with over 50 defendants who are involved in gangs right here in Lexington. Gang crimes range from drug trafficking to burglary to murder. Perhaps the highest profile gang case with which the Ceasefire Project has been involved was what has been called the Latin King murder case. Prosecutors Cindy Ricker and Brad Bryant were responsible for prosecuting the 7 gangsters who murdered one of their own. The Ceasefire Project obtained a grant in 2008 which allowed 49 police and prosecutors from Central Kentucky to go to Florida for an identification and investigation of gangs. That group continues to meet to share gang intelligence about activities of gangs in Central Kentucky. I've been privileged to be part of the Ceasefire Project, and I've been impressed with the dedication of everyone involved in dealing with armed and dangerous criminals and gangsters in Lexington. This is Caroline Dunn signing out. See you next time.
Last night in a WLKY investigation, we told you about the growing problem of gangs and how it's affecting the country and here in Jefferson County. Tonight, an East Louisville mother is sending a message to all parents that gangs are everywhere. Daniel Kemp is live outside LMPD headquarters with her exclusive story. Daniel?
Well, Vicki, it's here that the Narcotic Division and the Patrol Division work together to fight gangs here in Louisville, and that is a problem one mother never expected she'd fight right inside her own home.
Very predominant in the East End, very predominant.
For years, this woman lived an East End life with an all-American family, including her husband and their bright, athletic young son.
We had dinner every night. That was one of the rules. When he was involved in sports, which he always was, his father coached.
But today, she fears retaliation for speaking out about the gang she says her son soon got caught up in.
They got him. They got him hooked. They brainwashed him.
The woman, who we'll call Susan, says it started 12 years ago. Her son was only 15, and the boys she knew started to change.
The way he was dressing, certain colors, and I knew something was up.
She says her teen was hanging with a new group of friends who made new promises.
That we'll take care of you. You don't have to worry about things. We'll always be there for you.
New friends led to drugs. Drugs led to arrests. Then there were the guns.
They'd put a hit out on him. I think he owed some money.
At 20, Susan's son finally fessed up he was in a gang. According to FBI stats, there are currently about 1 million active gang members nationwide, and between 1,000 and 5,000 of them are right here in Louisville.
That can happen in any neighborhood in this community or in this country, and parents need to, just be watchful of that type of stuff.
It's a problem police continue to fight, but Susan is making her point to all parents in hopes of stopping the problem altogether.
It's not just West End. It's everywhere. Know where your children are. Check on them. Keep tabs on them.
And today, Susan says her son is 27 years old. She says her son is currently facing multiple felony charges and 15 to 30 years in prison. Of course, if you suspect any type of gang activity, you can report it to police anonymously on their telephone number 574-LMPD. Live downtown tonight, I'm Daniel Kemp.